very early on, I had to hire security. And if you had told me 10 years ago you hire security for the bakery, I would have laughed at you. Like, this is ridiculous. I was running back and forth, trying to calm everyone down and talking to the police, and I couldn't be inside the kitchen. And with my team, it was just like madness. And we needed security. We needed like a bouncer outside.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rodbard. Today in the show, I have such a great conversation with Dominique Ansel. He's the man behind the Cronut, which in my estimation is probably the most famous or the second most famous pastry in the world. You probably have had one. You've probably been gifted one. But we talk about so much more. We talk about his life working in France, moving to New York and working with Daniel Boulou at Daniel, and then opening his eponymous bakery that he's been running since 2011. It's such a great conversation with Dominique. I hope you enjoy it. Dominique Ansel, we're talking off mic a little bit about how you lose the French language, how your accents kind of meld. I feel you and Eric's been here like 35. Eric Repaire's been here 35 years. You've been here 20. I feel like Eric has a thicker French accent than you.
Well, that's possible, yeah. I mean, it really depends on people. I had actually had a speech coach for a few years.
Oh, no way.
Yes. Not because I couldn't speak, just to help me, I think, softening the French accent. And it's something actually I didn't want to talk about it for a while, but now I'm actually proud of it because it helped me a lot being understood, while speaking English. There's a lot of things I've learned actually. All the muscles that you use in your face to actually speak in English are different than when you speak French. The lips, the jaw that goes down when you speak English. The French is more like nasal language. So there's a lot of muscles that you don't necessarily use when you speak French that you actually use when you speak English.
That's wild. So when you moved here 20 years ago and you were taking English classes or when you were speaking more English, was your face hurting from the...
I actually had to massage my cheeks and stretch a little bit my jaw to try to relax my muscle. Because French people tend to speak very much with the lips and they mumble a lot, which we all do. And we're used to it. But when you speak this way in English, it's very hard to understand you.
It's so interesting. The word for banana, ananas, that, it hits in a different spot in your face.
That's it for you?
For me, yeah. Oh. I feel we could go all day about the French language. It's an incredible thing. But I want to ask you, we're here to talk about your new cookbook. We're also here to talk about your career and the expansion of your bakery. And first, though, I'd like to ask, where have you been eating out in New York City recently, restaurant-wise?
I really love Cafe Carmelini.
Yeah.
It's really good. When it first opened, I went for friends and family, and then I went back, and every single time, it's spot on. It's my type of food. It's so perfect, so delicious. It's the service is great. It's a beautiful space too. I really love it.
I can't wait to visit. I think Andrew's going to be on the show sometime this year. We've been talking, and I love that you say service. I want to ask you, I've had a lot of conversations recently about service in New York, about restaurant service. What do you think about restaurant service right now? I feel like it's a bit of a moving target.
It is moving, especially the tipping policies and the questioning about taxes now. It's tough, I feel like sometimes when you go to Europe, you don't get as good a service because people don't get tip.
Yeah.
Or people leave very little tip. It's part of the culture, But in the US, you tip people well when you get a good service, and you tip them even better when you get a great service.
Exactly. So there's definitely more incentive here.
There's a lot of incentive to give a better service for sure.
Do you feel like we're getting better service because of that, or do you think we're getting worse service because there aren't enough people to work? What do you think about that equation?
Well, I think we're getting much better service in the US overall. But it's true that, with the workforce not 100% back into restaurant business, sometimes it can be a little tough. For us, it's fine, because we're a bakery.
Yeah.
It's more casual service, so it's easier to handle. But when you go like fine dining and or very very nice service, like it's harder to find good people for sure.
I bet, and really, we'll get into what visiting Dominique Ansel is like in all the locations, because you have different styles of service in many of your bakeries. Dominique, when you go to a new city, or even in New York, and you enter a bakery for the first time, I'd love to get a sense of, how do you judge a new bakery when walking in?
It's tough. I try to not to judge too much. I stay open minded always. I'm very curious about like any type of food or bakeries. Doesn't matter where in the world it's from. Doesn't matter where like this person has like learned or not. I try to order the classic or the staple or the signature, and I don't judge too much because we all have different style. It's like cooking. You can do casual, you can do fine dining, you can go so much in between. I think understanding what you're eating and who are the people behind is already like telling you a lot about the food, and makes you like appreciate it a little bit more.
When you break into a croissant in a new bakery, are you looking at the lamination? I know you're being like diplomatic, but I mean, you gotta have some thoughts when you're looking, because not all croissants are created equally. You would know best.
Yeah, I'm a little crazy about my croissant. We have our own levain that is almost 14 years old. We do what we call a cross section. So we cut the croissant in half every day, analyze all the honeycomb, which is like the little air pocket inside, the lining, the crust, the coloration of the croissant. I smell it, I look at the crumbs. I'm a little crazy about the croissant, but that might not be the best example.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of leading you towards saying something about, not all croissants are equal, and maybe when you walk into a bakery and the lamination isn't so good, you might put that one down.
It is true that the croissant is one of the way to judge a bakery. I think any chef can be like as creative as you want. If you don't know how to make a good croissant, it's hard. You can do a lot of crazy things, but if you don't know how to make a good croissant, it's hard to be a good chef.
Is there a reason to actually attempt lamination at home as like a home baker?
I think it's fun for people who are not from the industry.
Yeah.
It's exciting because you learn like technique, you learn how to like work with dough, you see and understand and appreciate all the craft that goes behind, because it's so difficult to master. So it's fun to do like, do it once, weekend at home, maybe with the kids. But when you do it every day, it's a job. It's a mission. You have to be perfect every single day.
Absolutely. And you also have like a sheeter.
Yes.
in your like those big old sheeters, which home cooks are given these croissant recipes that they have to hand roll or use like I don't know what they're doing.
Rolling pin on your counter, on kitchen counter.
Yeah, but a sheeter, you kind of helps you a little bit.
It's, like you have to put things in perspective. You do like 10 croissants at home, and you have to do like 1,000 in a professional kitchen. You need the tools, you need the machines, you need the proper equipment to be able to do so.
Absolutely. I mean, can you get a sheeter for home?
They do small ones. I've seen small ones. It's not like, it's like a big pasta sheeter.
Yeah.
It's like a small dough sheeter. It's not too bad if you do like, if you use it like once a month or so.
Yeah. I mean, if you're doing like a home baking project every month and you love lamination, maybe invest in that home sheeter.
Mm-hmm. Or use the rolling pin.
Or
do a smaller batch to use a rolling pin. It still works fine.
I love seeing at-home croissants personally. If it can be half as thin and crispy as yours, I'm impressed. So take me back to working at Fauchon in Paris. This was, many would say, the finest food store in the world, and you worked there early in your career. What did you learn while there?
I think I've learned everything while working there.
Yeah.
I was a young kid. I was 20 years old, just arrived in Paris like a year before. I was in a big city. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. My only thing is that I wanted to work for the best. So my first job in Paris, I was actually like, I was making, I think it was a lot of money at the time. I was making like $1,200 a month.
Yeah.
Working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. It was a lot of money back then. And then I quit that job and I went to a more famous bakery. I stayed there for a year and I took a pay cut to $1,000 a month. And then I left that job. I went to Fauchon because I wanted to work for the best and only for the best. And I was getting paid $800 a month.
That's not the right trajectory, Dominique.
No, I know.
That's not where you want to go.
Actually, it was. It was.
Yeah,
it was working
totally.
with the best. And at the time, I didn't need much. I didn't have much. I just wanted a chance to work with the best and then see where this will take me. So I started as a young cook in the kitchen. I was 20 years old. I was one of like 30, 35 people hired just for the holidays. They were hiring extra staff.
Yeah.
So from September to December, I had a 4-month contract. And day one, they had a meeting with all the new people and told us they will keep 3 people.
Wow. It sounds like a reality TV
Yeah, it
show
sounds like a
before
Top
that.
Chef moment.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks before the end, they called us all again. They told us they will keep 1 only.
Let me guess who that was.
That was me.
That's amazing. So tell me, what were you doing in this period of this tryout? What kind of tasks at Fauchon?
But everything like a young cook will do, like cleaning, organizing, scaling recipes, making batches of cakes, mousses, macarons. People always often ask me like, why did they choose you? I kind of like know, but I'm not certain. I think it's a lot of different things. It's like personality, adaptability. You have to make sure that you can adjust yourself based on the environment. Speed, cleanliness, comprehension. The way you move in the kitchen. It's a lot of different things. You have to be sharp. You have to be quick. You have to be reliable. You have to be coming on time.
Yeah, there's a lot of skills while you're doing pastry. You also, I'm sure, over that 4-month period, were you getting better? Were you getting better
for sure.
And faster?
Yeah, I would that's the thing. Back then, I would not take notes. You don't take notes. You memorize everything. And it's the same way I learned in school. You don't take notes. You come, I did my pastry exam. I went to the finals and you couldn't bring any recipes. So you have to memorize everything. So I was used to work this way and I was really good at it. Nowadays, you ask all the young cooks to bring a notebook and take notes so they don't forget. But back then it was like, you better memorize, otherwise you out.
And anyone who's checked out a table, like a baking math table, like that's a lot of math there.
It's a lot of math. You have to remember every ingredient, every quantity for each ingredient. I don't do this anymore. Of course, everything is computerized now. We just print recipe. We change the ratio very easily. We have formulas. It's very quick. But back then, you had no computer, no recipes. Like you have to remember all. Like you're in a bad spot.
It's wild to think about a time like that. And let's fast forward to 2006, and you're working with Danielle. You're running pastry there, and take us back to that period almost 20 years ago. It's a different era. What are fancy restaurant desserts like when you're at Danielle in 2006?
Yeah, so I left Fauchon in 2006 to come to New York to work for Danielle. At the time, in Paris, I was managing a team of over 100 people. I was developing the stores internationally. I will travel, develop recipes. I had a lot of skills, a lot of good skills. So when I came to New York, I was like, oh, it's a team of 10, 12 people in pastry department. It's got to be fine. I didn't know what was coming for me.
Yeah.
I was like, oof. I was hard in the beginning because I was a chef that was trained in bakeries and retail and not so much in fine dining. So fine dining was something I've learned. It took me a good year, almost 2 years to find my own style of plated desserts, which was completely different. It's like a new job. You can overlap some of the skills, but it is still a new job. A way to think of seasonality. You have to work with the fruits, some of the vegetables when they're on season. You cannot wait too long to develop recipes. So it was a great learning experience. So fine dining desserts, they're very, very much intricate. You work a lot with the textures, with the flavors. You use a lot of things that you might not think about. Sometimes vinegar, sometimes some salt, sometimes a little sweet and savory, and you have to work with of course, the colors, the plating. It has to be beautiful, it has to be refined, and it has to taste delicious.
Oh my God, it's so many elements coming together. Seasonality in New York. You've got lots of catering, you've got private dining, you've got events, but then you've got DB there over your shoulder pushing you Because that guy can push some chefs.
Oh, he can push.
We
Yeah, he's
know.
pushed many in the past.
He's
for
pushed
sure, for
many.
sure.
How's he pushing you in that first year when you're figuring out what a plated dessert should be in New York City?
I think when I first came, I was like still like very like had a very French like way of working in the kitchen, and I've learned a lot from him because he was not taking it. You know, you have to be, US. Yeah, you can still keep your French touch, and you were working, but you have to adapt to the locals. You have to adapt to, when you have a regular that comes back, 4 or 5 times. Yes, you have to change the menu, and yes, you have to like come up with something new to still impress them after five visits because it's had a whole menu.
Yeah.
And that way of working for me was a little hard in the beginning. So it definitely pushed me into like understanding the market, understanding his customers and impress them every single time. And that's what Daniel is about. He's like pushing to adapt himself based on the opportunity to please the people coming and dine with him.
You're making a lot of desserts on the fly then, especially for VIPs.
Yes, exactly.
Wow, what's your pocket dessert when you're forced now? I know that you're not doing a lot of plated desserts, at least at the scale of Daniel. What's in your back pocket for like a great plated dessert just off the fly?
Nowadays, I think I still think those days at Daniel where I had like 10 desserts on the menu, 5 chocolates, 5 fruits. They were all like really good, and people always wanted a souffle. Last minute souffle when you have like so many covers and like you're so busy and like in middle of service when you have to send all this, you have to stop everything to go make a souffle. So you have to make your pastry cream, you have to like whip egg whites, so put them together, and it's so sensitive, so time sensitive, it's so like texture, temperature sensitive that everything has to be perfectly timed. And it was like literally like throwing like oil on the fire.
Yeah.
It was like very challenging to do, but I found a way.
I mean, you got to find an oven too.
Yeah. You find a way.
You'll find a way.
You find whatever you need to find to make it happen. So I found a way to actually like kind of stabilize the souffle by adding a little bit of cornstarch in the pastry cream. So once you whip your egg whites and you make a kind of batter that can actually last in the fridge, they can last a couple hours, and then you can just pop it in the oven.
Pop it for the finish. You just
and they're beautiful. They stay beautiful because of that little hint of cornstarch in that recipe.
Very cool. A tip. What's like the most American dessert that you were making at Daniel when you said you were like really focusing on the American audiences?
But I don't think we were trying to do anything too American. I think we still wanted our French, French touch, savoir-faire, and like techniques in the plating. That was big part of the identity at Daniel. I think playing with like some more like typical American flavors like peanut butter. One of the top seller on my menu was a peanut butter dessert, and I loved it too.
Dominique, what do you think about Reese's peanut butter cups and the seasonal varieties that come out maybe every 3 months?
I don't want to talk about it.
Wait, why?
I don't like it. I don't like
There's
it.
There's a door. We can end this now. I'm
but
kidding.
This is how like for me, like understanding and exploring is important. For example, I didn't grow up in the US. I'm not used to those flavors. For you, there might be childhood memories. And I talk about this all the time because it's fascinating to me. How like sometimes I don't like things that people love, but I still work with it and I still cook with it. I still like experience with it. My, like my proudest like creation was probably one of my proudest was the frozen s'mores.
Yeah.
And I when I first came to the US, I had no idea what a s'mores was.
Yeah.
And the tradition of it, it's fascinating how people gather together, campfire, and they're like, family, friends. It's such like deep memories with food that is like in your soul. And when I learned about this, when I saw it, I was like, it's fascinating. I'm gonna create like an ice cream version of it.
Oh my God. I mean, it's so smart because, you weren't going to like Boundary Waters in Minnesota and having a campfire and burning the shit out of marshmallows and putting them in like some of the worst chocolate you'll ever find. Sorry, sorry, Hershey's. But really, when you start to transform it into something that's beautiful, it takes on a new tone, new note.
Exactly. So for me, it was not like so much creating something new. It was like giving people a new experience. So I took that, I wanted to do an ice cream of it. So I made like a vanilla ice cream with like beautiful Madagascar vanilla. We added like a chocolate wafer, a little bit of sea salt. We did honey marshmallow that was all wrapped around. We put on a branch of willow wood that was smoked, and we torched this to order right in front of people. So the action of torching that marshmallow, the roasting, and when you eat it, you have the scent of the campfire, but because the branch has been smoked. And it's crunchy, it's chewy, it's cold, it's a little hint of salt. It's like a whole new experience. It's like living the s'mores for the first time, but having the same memory of the s'mores you had before.
It's like the first time people saw color television. I feel like your s'mores is that. Let me go back because you're not getting off the hook. What is wrong with Reese's peanut butter cups, the Reese's pumpkins, the Reese's eggs, the Reese's hearts?
I don't think anything is wrong with it. It's just not my cup of tea. I don't enjoy like eating so much like, chocolate and sweets in general.
Okay, I'm going to translate that and correct me if I'm wrong, because you obviously eat a lot of sweets because you're a master of...
Taste a lot of sweets.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't eat a lot of sweets.
Thank you for correcting me. I didn't mean to put words in your mouth. But I'm getting a sense that the Reese's peanut butter pumpkin is too sweet. There's too much sugar content.
I have never tried the pumpkin version of it. I've tried the regular version of it. I guess you have to convert me. And
you were very kind to bring pastries to our studio this morning. I'm going to return the favor. Watch your mailbox.
Okay.
Watch your mailbox. All right. So 2011, you end up opening your first bakery. You leave Danielle. You open up Soho, West Village? Soho. Yeah. It's not like a big success right out of the gate. Why did you decide to open then and there?
It was, I always wanted to open my own bakery. It was a moment where, after like almost 7 years at Daniel, I was like, I need to do something else. I need to keep on challenging myself. I was like past 30. I was like, 35. I was like, I need to do something else. And I start looking, like, making business plan, looking for potential. I had met this designer, an architect that was like walking hand to hand with a contractor. And we went actually for a meeting, Union Square. We saw a space that didn't work. And my architect's office is in Soho. So they took the subway back, walking right in front of the bakery that was closed at the time. And they're like, hey, you should check out the space. I was like, I don't know, Soho? I don't think so. I don't think Soho is for me. I don't think it's the right location. Like, you should check it out. It used to be a bakery. Might be good for you. I went. I visited the space. And I was like, this is it. I fell in love right away with the space. I was like, this tiny little kitchen, which I thought would be enough, of course, was not.
No way. But...
It was like 10 by 15. I had a little garden. I was like, this is a great space to start. This is perfect. I don't need too big. I don't need too much. And I was perfect. I had, talked to Daniel, told him I want to leave. That was a hard time too.
Yeah, my guy, Danielle, was not probably happy about you leaving.
No, it was not. It took me, at first, I talked to the team that was in New York, the HR, and Daniel was traveling to France. And I told everyone that was his last week before he returned. So no one called him, no one bothered him. And nobody wanted to talk to him. They made me call him. I'm like, sure, I'll call him. I have no problem with that. So I called him on one of his last day of vacation, and I told him I want to leave. It did not go well.
I mean...
It took me a good 45 minutes to an hour to get him calm down. He wanted to know where I was going, who else I was going to work for, and why. I was like, I'm going to open my own. I'm not going to work for anyone else. And it was tough because after almost 7 years together, we had such a close and bonding relationship, almost like father and son. And he trusted me so much. And I felt, like a little sad too leaving. And I felt like I was disappointing him. But I had to do this for myself. And we're great now. We're great friends. And he's been nothing but supportive and still looking up to him and admire everything about Daniel. But it was a tough time because, when you build so much together, we earned the 3rd Michelin star, Daniel together, 4-star New York Times. We had amazing years together.
I mean, you were on his hip, used to cover the party circuit a bit more then and doing banquets and galas and tastings. You were always there with him. And I'm sure if you were like, I'm going to go work with Sean Hergott, that's going to be a different conversation.
I'll be a big star for him, yeah. I will be a big star, yeah.
So the fact that you're opening a bakery, I'm sure when the shock was over, he supported it. But what's the first 6 months of Dominique Ansel, the bakery, like down in that Soho location, which was a little bit, less trafficked than Union Square, obviously anything Midtown. Obviously, you got a better deal and things turned out pretty well.
Yeah, the first 6 months were, I will say, like hard, beautiful, and innocent. It was hard because I only had 4 employees. My girlfriend at the time opened the shop with me. She's now my wife and the mother of my kids.
Yeah.
We only had 4 employees. We had not much. We had put all our savings into that tiny little bakery. I'd painted that place myself, electrocuted myself, changing the outlets and the light fixtures and cleaned the bathroom and everything. Like I was taking out the trash every day. It was very humble. It was like innocent because we didn't know like much what we were doing. No one prepares you to become a business owner. No one prepares you to things that are crazy that comes your way. And it was just beautiful because we're serving every single guest. We knew, all the drinks, the first name, what they like or not. It was like an amazing moment.
It was a real neighborhood spot in the early days, absolutely. And, working at Fauchon, working at Danielle, like you have HR, you've got hundreds of employees.
Exactly.
So I'm sure there was a big learning curve. And so I've intentionally waited about 27 minutes to even say the word Cronut because I respect you.
I see.
I respect you.
I appreciate
I want to get it down. But let me ask you for this show, was that world-changing pastry the world's most famous pastry, maybe outside of Mrs. Fields, maybe outside Dunkin' Donuts, but was it hiding in plain sight? Was it just there? Or did it take a long time to figure out that this would be so successful and work so well?
I always tell people there's no way you can plan something like this. It's impossible. It's just impossible. It was just like a good pastry, a good idea. It took me a few months actually to work on it, to make it good. It's not as simple as it looks. It's not just a fried croissant, It's a complex dough that took me like 3 months, like different, hydration levels and flours and tests. And then we put it on the menu for Mother's Day, just for the weekend. That was the plan. A friend of ours was a blogger that just stopped by without, planning either. He took a photo, put it on his blog. He called me the same afternoon. He was like, "Hey, Dominique, I think you should be ready. You're going to be busy this weekend." I had an increase of traffic of 300% on my website and over 140,000 links on this article.
That's incredible. Who was the journalist? What was the article?
It was Hugh Morin from Club Street.
Shout out to Hugh Merwin. I love he wrote the first article on the Cronut. Let's put it on the record.
It did. And he was a friend back then. He was like, "Dominique, you will never guess. Like, my article went viral." I was like, "What? With viral? What does it even mean?"
Right.
The time when no one even know what social media is. Like, what do you mean went viral? I was like, this is going crazy. Like, you should be ready and make some more. I was like, okay, I made 30 today. I'm going to make 45 tomorrow. A little did I know, by day 3, we had over 150 people lining up at the door before opening. And I was like, what is going on here?
That's incredible to hear.
Remember, still 4 employees.
Is this the first year you're open, 2011?
That was the first year. We opened at the end of 2011 and Cronut was 2013.
2013 Mother's Day is when the Cronut hit.
A year after.
So about a year and a half. So Hugh's article hits. There's like a viral sensation. But you still got that tiny kitchen. So how are you making up for the demand? How are you filling these orders?
So that's a good question. We couldn't keep up. That was just madness. People were lining up as early as 2:00 in the morning. They were like killing the lines, arguing. They were like fighting, screaming at each other. Police was called.
Stop.
The neighbors.
Please. Wow.
Neighbors was calling the police. There was madness. Solicitors were coming. Like it was a mess every single day. So very early on, I had to hire security. And if you had told me 10 years ago you hire security for the bakery, I would have laughed at you. Like, this is ridiculous.
That's
I had to hire security because I was running back and forth trying to calm everyone down and talking to the police, and I couldn't be inside the kitchen. and with my team, it was just like madness, and we needed security. We needed like a bouncer outside for the bakery. Then keeping up with demand, we increased quantity slowly, but I couldn't do more than what I had.
You kept scarcity there,
dozen.
Keep the buzz going a little bit. Obviously,
I mean, that was not the plan. It was just like a tiniest kitchen ever. There's so little we could do. I was working probably like 20, 22 hours a day. I was barely sleeping. I was skin and bone. It was a rough time, and the staff wanted to quit because it was too busy, and they were getting yelled at by the customers because we didn't make enough. We had no rules, nothing in place. And early on, I decided to focus on customer service and keep the quality of the product like intact, no matter what.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will come and tell me, "Oh, you should open a factory. It's time to like cash out and mass produce this. Great idea." I decided not to. I want to keep it original, authentic. We change the flavor every single month. We have never repeated a flavor.
That's amazing.
Time. So we keep challenging ourselves with the flavors. We keep it unique every month, and this is it.
Was it ever going to be the Dosan and not the Cronut?
So we registered the trademark. A friend of ours, which was our lawyer, was doing the trademark for Dominique Ansel Bakery, and when all of this happened. That was like day probably like 4 or 5, and she was like, "Oh, you should trademark the Cronut." I laugh at her like, "This is ridiculous." No, she's like, "No, you should do it." And she sat me down. She's like, "Listen, I'm a lawyer. I'm telling you should do this, and this is why it's important. If you don't trademark it, big industry will come. They will register the mark, and they will prevent you from using your mark. And this is what I do. I'm an IP lawyer. Like, this is what I do for a living. You have to." I was like, no, really. Like, and she insisted, and she did it for me.
She did it. Great.
Yes. 5 days later after that, so day 10, there were about 27 applications to register the mark Cronut.
Wow.
But we were the first in to, so we own the right of the Cronut. This is our brand. This is our mark. But this is amazing how like, just telling me a lot of like small business owners, when they come up with good ideas like this, they just get bullied and they just get shut down by big industrial.
Yeah, it's great advice. Do you have to defend that mark
You have to defend it.
Day of the week?
You have to defend it.
Do you defend it a lot yourself?
No, not myself. Of course, my lawyers was taking care of it.
Right.
I could barely make those Cronuts, so I was working 20 hours in the kitchen.
No. I meant like your team defends to this day.
You have to. Yeah, to this day. You have to protect your mark, which is the hardest thing to do. You have to educate people on why like this is important. Like they can, of course, people get inspired. Of course, people want to do something similar. A lot of people just want to rip it off. They just want to do something and cash out on it too. So there's some bad people out there. It's hard to tell who's doing what. We just have to tell people that the mark is registered and they cannot use the mark. So that's why people, try to make imitation and call it something else. But
we've tried those. We tried those copycat.
It's like with fashion, like you want the real like Hermes bag or do you want the fake one?
Up for debate on that. But I'll tell you, the fake Cronuts out there aren't good. And I need to stress that I've had your Cronuts over the years. It's really good. Like there's something happening there for any fan of laminated dough, any fan of voinisseries. I think that this is one of the best pastries you're going to get.
It is. It is a great pastry. I think it's a genuine, authentic idea that was executed like perfectly at a time where, not much was happening in the world of pastry.
Nope.
And it took the world by storm. It's amazing. Like looking back, I don't think I realized right away. I think I was just overwhelmed with like trying to keep up, keeping the team together, keeping the quality, keeping the customers happy. I was just like overwhelmed for actually many years and traumatized by like the crash of like pressure behind like keeping it authentic. That only now, looking back, I'm like, this was a beautiful idea and we did everything right. If I had to do it again, I'll do the same thing.
I love that you can say that. And my next question is about the pressure, because there's a pressure to make the next Cronut. There's a pressure to make the next viral pastry because, Dominique, you're the guy who does it. Did you? I mean, how did you
It's
negotiate that?
it's funny because every interview while we created the corner is like, what's next? What's next?
Yeah, I
What's
know.
next? What's
I know.
next? What's next? The frozen s'mores, what's next? And the cookie shots, what's next? How many pastries do you want me to go like get viral, you know? And I'm not like a viral machine of like creating pastry. You cannot like plan it.
You have
They're,
bars, Dominique.
they're
Bars. These are bars. You can. They come out like your Jay-Z. I mean, you've got these bars.
they're beautiful creations, and we've done like many before that and many more after that. It's now we're at a time where there's so much pressure with social media of like things going viral that people create just for social media, which is a different generation. But
Yeah.
back then they were just all these are still our signature. They still are beautiful creations, and you cannot force it. You cannot force yourself to like create. You can give me all the time and money of the world tomorrow. You cannot force someone to create something that will go viral. You don't decide. People decide.
Last question about the Cronut. How many are you selling a year now?
A year?
Yeah.
I have no idea. We do a couple of hundred there, but we keep the quality very good, very top. The flavors still changes every single month. We've created over like 300 something flavors throughout the years. It's fun. It's getting harder, but it's fun, and it's still like very very precious and very special.
It's very fun that you can iterate every month, and you've got a location in Las Vegas too, so you can get the Cronut out in Vegas. You can get in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Any other expansion plans?
That's it for now.
That's it for now. Yeah, man. I respect it, dude. Like you keep it really really small when you could have obviously done Dunkin' Cronuts. I mean, and I'm sure the money was there, but you obviously have a love for craft. We'll get to the cookbook, but I have a couple more questions about your work. What is workshop? Because I know that there's the bakery you can walk in and grab pastries, but there's more of a seated format?
So the workshop is first is our main kitchen. This is where we have a little more space there. We can produce for the bakery and for the workshop. The workshop, I've growing up in the kitchen, I always love croissants and viennoiserie. So I wanted to make a small shop dedicated to that. So it's about like 12 to 14 selection of different croissants type. Some sweet, some savory. That shows like a little bit more technique, a little bit more, flavors and style of viennoiserie, of croissants. And there at the workshop, the idea was to utilize most of the kitchen for production and to use a little front of it, the front shop, just for the croissants.
Love that. Are you ever doing events like seated dinners? Because I know back in the day you used to have, some events up there, which I kind of.
Yeah, when we were in the West Village, we had Up. We call Up for Unlimited Possibility.
I got to go to one. They were rad, man.
Yeah, it was amazing. We actually hung a table on the ceiling of the kitchen, which my designer told me I was crazy. I shouldn't do that. We did it. It was working very well. So a few nights a week, we'll clean up the kitchen, drop the table from the ceiling down to the floor, and people will have dinner in the middle of the kitchen, our production kitchen. And we'll do like a tasting menu with 6, 8, 10 different desserts. Towards the end, we mix it up with some savory as well. People loved it. It was such an experience, and every menu had a theme, and every theme will change every 6 to 8 months.
What happened? Why isn't it there anymore?
Well, it's not there because we moved during COVID.
Yeah.
Our landlord was not the best at the time. Our landlord in the West Village. We were forced to move because everything went down. We lost a lot of employees, a lot of customers. We lost everything, like most people. Gratefully, our landlord on Spring Street was always supportive and always here with us. Amazing landlords, and they had a space in the Flatiron on 27th Street, and they offer us to like move our kitchens there, and they help us build it out. So it was a blessing. It was a blessing. It was like a great opportunity for us to
hug your landlord if you have a good landlord. They're kind of rare in this day and age.
Yeah.
I love that you bring that up. I mean, I've had Pi Cheong on the show and others in pastry, Alex Stupak, and I've talked about this idea of the degustation menu for pastry and dessert. Do you feel there's an audience of pastry freaks who want to come in and have just pastry, maybe a few savory, but all pastry on a tasting level?
I think there's an audience. It's not the biggest one.
Yeah.
I don't think these people necessarily look for like pastry or sweets. I think everybody now, they look for an experience
Yeah.
more than, the actual food you're eating. If you can combine both, which is what we're doing, it became an amazing experience.
Yeah, I think having wine, having a little savory, having some music, it's all part of the package. And I fully agree. I think there's select few who could like go all day and have like 7 plated desserts. And
Yeah,
I'm one of
for
those
us,
guys.
we had like themes as well.
Yeah.
The first menu was called First. So we had all the first time in your life. So first, for example, the first kiss was a little dish that was custom made with a little panna cotta, and you had to slurp this. that was amazing.
Cute.
That was very fun.
I like it.
Our first heartbreak was a beautiful flowers that catches on fire on the plate. Like the first time living on your own. There's a lot of first time in your life that are very memorable, and we're trying to retrace this, and we brought people to a conversation, to a unique experience where everyone was sharing their first time without even asking, and that brings you back to time, memories, and when you can enjoy food and have like a topic of conversation and an experience that's unique. That was amazing. That was an amazing time.
I hope one day you're back in that zone. I know you're busy. You've got young children as well, so maybe you can't be working at the pass. But I'd love to come in and have you do a dessert tasting for me one day. I hope you can do that. Let's talk about your new book, Life's Sweetest Moments. What inspired you to be a little more personal with this book, and what is this book doing and saying?
I think it's a time where like I was talking about experience, and experiences and food in general. It's all linked to like memories to me. Memory is something very important. Like childhood memory, like friendship memory, family memory. And this book talks a lot about like stories that happen at the bakery on Spring Street. A lot of people we've met, a lot of people that made an impact. Sometimes very small, sometimes it's just meeting someone for a few minutes. Sometimes it's like building a real relationship. And this book talks about recipes and why you bake. So a lot of people like bake to say thank you. People like bake and buy pastry to say sorry. People buy pastry to celebrate. There's a lot of different reasons in life why people bake. And baking is always like a common point of like a conversation where like people eat something sweet to forgive, to celebrate, to congratulate people. And it's amazing how like throughout the years, like, you're saying like bakery is a part of the community. It's a community. It's like still like, it doesn't matter how big your reputation is. We're still a neighborhood business that brings people together. And I saw that, during COVID more than anything else, when everything was shut down and the only place where people would meet was our bakery.
Yeah, your bakery and your Cronuts and your coffees.
So this book talks a lot about like those like simple recipes that you can do at home and why I create those recipes.
What's the first one I'm turning to? I know it's a hard question. Is there one?
Did you see the book?
Of course. I saw the book.
Let me...
I know, and I know the move. I've done these interviews on the other side of the mic where you're like asked about a recipe. You got to like look through it because that's how it rolls.
Yeah,
I know the vibe, brother. I know the
tough.
vibe.
You asked me to choose one.
I know. I gave you the worst possible question. I just like to get a sense of one that really sticks out.
Give me one chance. One chance to look through and pick one.
Yeah. Why not? There's too many, I know.
Let's see. Okay. I'll talk about the brown butter mochi.
Oh, my God.
So that's a very simple recipe. It's a brown butter mochi that is brulee on top, just like a creme brulee. So the story behind this goes, my wife and I, like, finally after a year of opening the bakery, we took some vacation. We took 4 days, and we decided to travel a little bit, and we went to Hawaii. Hawaii for 4 days. It's a short trip.
Yeah, short trip.
It's a short trip, but we couldn't take more time. We had like so little staff. So we took 4 days, we went to Hawaii, and we had a great moment there. Of course, had some mochi there, huge Asian community. Hawaiian mochis are very famous. So I came back, and this is when we launched the Cronut. So Hawaii was my last vacation after like, years of not taking vacation. that was my last vacation before we launched the Cronut. I came back and launched the Cronut in May 2013. And that's my little like story behind like remembering that moment where I took
That
my last
last
vacation.
time you get to actually relax. Butter mochi is such a great recipe. It's pretty easy
It's
too
so
to make.
good, so simple
Yeah,
to
it's a
make.
simple
There's
recipe.
a couple ingredients. You mix it together, put it in a pan,
Yeah.
in the oven, and then just cut them to squares. Put a little bit of sugar, touch the top. It's so simple. It's like chewy. Like we make it with brown butter.
Yep.
It's nice, nutty flavor. It's like a little crispy on top. Very easy to make.
How do
at
you
home.
torch it? How do you actually use a flame?
We actually use a torch.
You
Yeah.
gotta.
You
listen,
have to. Yeah.
Buy that kitchen torch, guys.
Yeah.
You just buy one.
Just be careful with it.
Be careful, of course. Like a mandolin, you gotta be careful. I love that recipe. And what's the flour? It's like glutinous flour, right?
Yes, it's rice flour.
Rice flour, glutinous rice
We
flour.
use mochiko for that recipe, but
Yeah, of course. Mochiko is the guy.
it's classic.
You got to have a box. Yeah, because I think if you have mochiko, this is a gluten-free recipe.
It
right?
is.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about butter mochi. Great call there. I love it. Dominique, on This Is Taste, we ask guests about their discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid-fire, fast and furious taste check. Are you ready?
I have to be.
You're going to do this. I know it. The best fruit.
Best fruit, pineapple.
Okay, so what is a great pineapple to you?
So the best pineapple I've ever had was in Martinique, which is a French island in the Caribbean. I was driving by. I saw this guy with this little stand with a pineapple. Stopped by. Of course, they were fresh. They were right from the spot. They were picked ripe, and I just like cut that pineapple, give it to you. It's the juiciest, most floral, like refreshing, and like it was the greatest pineapple in my life.
I have a similar story in Hawaii. I went to a Costco of all places, had fresh pineapple, and it like lit up my brain. It's the acidity balance, right? Like in good pineapple, it's like that brightness.
Yeah, you have a bit of acidity, like you have like the right amount of sweetness, but you have all the floral notes as well.
All the floral.
Which is, like, sadly, we don't always get this in the city because everything is imported.
Exactly.
Everything is picked when it's not ripe. Sits in a truck for like weeks.
Yeah.
And by the time you get it, it's kind of like okay, but it's never as good as
like
fresh
that.
pineapple.
The best dessert
I've ever had, or the best dessert I make?
Your interpretation, category wise, like if you're broadly speaking, the best dessert.
I love a good tiramisu.
Comes up a lot on the show.
Yeah, tiramisu. It's simple. It's like it's like kind of like comforting. It's creamy. It's like a little hint of coffee. It's like if the biscuit is well soaked, a little cocoa powder, the right amount of like sweetness, a contrast of a little bitterness with the cocoa powder.
Are you using ladyfingers?
No, I make my own.
Obviously. The best bread.
The best bread? I mean, I grew up eating bread. Growing up with my mom, my grandma, we used to go to the bakery like 2, 3, 4 times a day. So the bakeries in France are small. And they bake all day long. They bake every hour, every 2 hours, fresh bread coming out of the oven. The best bread for me, it's a bread that's still like hot. You can barely hold, that crispy, like a nice baguette that has a crispy like crust, and you break it, you see the steam coming out. This is the best bread.
The barely hold metric is very smart.
Yes.
I feel like if you can have bread that you can barely hold, you're not going to go wrong.
That's a freshness. It's quality.
Love
That's a sign of quality. And chef life for us French people, like it's a couple hours. After 3, 4 hours, your baguette is not good anymore.
It goes away. All right. Your favorite American fast food chain?
I'll say Shake Shack.
Yeah, it's pretty good, right?
It's pretty strong. Yeah, the first time I went to Shake Shack was in Madison Square Park.
It was
probably, this was the original. They only had one at a time.
Yeah.
I stood there. I took my parents, stood there for like 45 minutes, which I hate waiting in line for.
Yeah.
Says
the man with the cronut. Particularly rich statement.
I mean, people don't like waiting in line.
I know.
Some people do, but I don't. And we waited 45 minutes. I had this burger. I was like, that was so good. So juicy, so well done. Simple, but I also had the shroom burger at the time.
Oh, yeah. The shroom burger, yeah.
The shroom burger. That was really, really good. And I remember eating it and I was like, I want another one. I don't want to go back in line.
I know. You need to order 4. All right. A few more questions here. Your favorite New York City restaurant right now?
I'll go back to Cafe Carmini. I think it's like right on exactly what I love. A mix between like French and Italian cuisine.
Yeah.
but done like perfectly. Every single dish, well seasoned, well cooked. The ambiance of the restaurant's like just beautiful and stunning. The service is great. The wine is good. Like
Yeah.
you can't go wrong.
Your favorite bakery in the world that you do not run yourself?
Tough questions there.
Yeah, it's a taste check.
I would
Stop.
say Pierre Hermé in Paris. Pierre Hermé is one of the father of like the revolution of
Macaron
pastry in Paris, in the world. I think he has like amazing taste when it comes to textures, flavors, great execution. All his products, you can't go wrong. It's just like it's great every time.
Favorite cookbook?
Strangely, it's still like the Escoffier.
Oh no, it's not strange. I mean, you've cooked from
strange?
it, I'm sure.
I mean, I grew up, with French classic, learning by the French classic. Escoffier is like one of the founder of like French cuisine. I always go back and look and try to understand the history and tradition of why we were cooking this way back then. And there's a lot of things, they didn't have that we have back then and we have today. There's a lot of like technology and tools, but it's amazing just to look back and to see the simplicity and the innocence behind the style of cooking that was like pure, all about the quality, about the ingredients, and about like a good execution.
Your favorite sandwich?
Atlantico. Do you know Atlantico?
I don't know it. Tell me about it.
It's an Italian place. They just opened in the US not so long ago. They're opening in a lot of places. I had amazing sandwich with pistachio paste.
Oh, cool.
And mortadella.
That combo.
That was fresh, good, tasty.
Bologna, baby.
Like simple, very simple.
Love that combo. I got to check out that sandwich. Is it pressed bread? Is it hot bread? What's it like?
It's just a focaccia. Just cut it in half. That's it. That simple.
Dominique Ansel, thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
Thank you for having me here.
Emma Pavido, welcome to This Is Taste. How are you doing today?
Great, thanks. It's great to be here.
Before we get into academic travel abroad and our partnership with Taste Travels, I wanted to get a sense, what have you been doing this fall? Where have you been traveling? What have you been eating?
Well, I'm just back from a fabulous trip to France and Spain, to Bordeaux and Biarritz with our group, the Dinner with Friends Abroad. We had the pleasure of the company of Nancy Silverton and Ruth Reichel, and it was an absolutely fantastic week. Delicious meals from start to finish. Many Michelin-starred restaurants. We ate at the number 2 restaurant from the top 50 restaurants in the world. Glorious, really beautiful locations, some fantastic things that chefs are doing in that part of the world. I'd say the Basque Country was a real discovery for me. Beautiful autumn weather. So that was a really fantastic trip that I've just got back from. Back home, I haven't been out much recently to recent restaurants. My Italian husband and I are part of a large Italian community. So there's a lot of great cooking and eating going on at home. But here in DC next week, we're all looking forward to the opening of Nancy Silverton's new restaurant. So I shall be going down there next week. And I'm hoping to make it to New York before the end of the year to check out Stefano Secchi's new restaurant. So that's kind of a little bit of where I've been and where I've been eating in the past.
Oh, wonderful. Stefano's a friend of the show, and I haven't been to his new spot, so you'll have to let me know. Going back, you work with Nancy and Ruth on those trips that I've spoken to them about, and I think it must be honestly so cool to have a chef and a writer together in country. What's it like when you travel with these professionals? And how are your travelers responding to having, Nancy and Ruth at the dinner table? That's pretty special.
It is extremely special, I would say. We're driving along the bus, each morning on our way to a visit, to a lunch, to a, producer of some artisanal product. And Nancy and Ruth just start talking about their love of food or why we've selected going to this location, food trends they're seeing, ideas that they've picked up from that meal yesterday that we had, and things that kind of Nancy's going to take back with her for future, experimentation and cooking at home. It really is like sitting around the table chatting with them. They're so humble, they're so kind, and they're so generous with their time. They move around talking to everyone at all the different meals, and it's just like traveling with really a group of friends. At first, people who join the group are a little bit sort of starstruck that they're traveling with Nancy and Ruth, but by the end, we're just old friends sitting around sharing, love of food and love of different recipes. It's a real pleasure to be traveling with them.
That is really cool to hear, and I draw some parallels between your experiences with Ruth and Nancy and what we do at Taste Travels. I just returned from Puglia in Naples with Mauricio Leo, author of The Perfect Loaf and just a terrific bread baker. And similarly, we would start the trip. Everyone's kind of like, wow, Mauricio's here. Everyone loves his work, but by the end, we're swapping emails and getting into WhatsApp, and we're becoming friends. And I love that you mentioned the kind of chit chat on the bus, because similarly, that's what our Taste Travels are all about. We have great moments for impromptu Q&A and discussion about big topics. On the bread trip, a lot of bread talk, but also just general food trends. And I think that's a big part of what Taste Travels is about, is kind of having this living document. You're kind of living the research. And, you mentioned Nancy is opening a restaurant. She's doing research. Well, similarly, Mauricio was writing a cookbook. So we were out scouting some locations that he'd photograph in future trips. And really, I love that travel is so interactive. And so I think we'll get into a little more about Taste Travels. But I wanted to get a little bit of history about ATA, who are your company, the company we work with here at Taste. And what do you do? And what's a little bit of the history of the company?
Yeah. Well, Academic Travel Abroad has been around for 70 years, developing educational tours for many American organizations around the country for licensing brand media companies. Our oldest and partner is the Smithsonian Journeys, for whom we've developed a myriad of educational travel programs around the tour. But other current large brands that we work with are Chautauqua Institution, who have a growing travel brand, and the Great Courses Journeys. And now more recently, we're really moving into the food travel space, as you alluded to. Taste Travels, of course, being one of them. We also work with Bon Appetit Getaways. We work with a number of wine magazines and a number of star chefs, food writers, influencers, if you will, such as Nancy and Ruth. I've been with the company for nearly 25 years, and I lead the creative team of program designers. So we put together those itineraries, working with Maurizio, to create really a travel experience that speaks to you and the audience that you are gathering. And then we liaise with our many partners around the world to make sure that we create this unique, bespoke experience. And I would say that, no itinerary that we create is the same. We are putting together something like 80 to 100 a year for different organizations with a very different theme and focus each time.
Yeah, it's really a good point about how unique these trips are, and I fully agree that no trips are similar, and we've done 3 here, and I'll get into some of those trips that we've already hosted with Taste, but let's zoom out a little bit. And I have plenty of thoughts here, but I'd love to get a sense from you about organized travel. Tours, so to speak. I think these tours have had somewhat of a stigma. There's certainly not all tours are created equally, and I think some of our listeners are quite savvy travelers and love traveling independently. I'm very much in that boat, but on the flip side, I'm so in on going on organized trips. I think there's so much value to having somebody do the prep work, and it's literally days and days of prep work. I'll respond after you speak, but I want to get a sense of why organized travel is so great, not just for, the retirees who I think many assume that's what organized trips are for, but for younger folks, because I think our trips, we've seen many young people on it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think with any organized travel program, we take care of the hassle. We create the itinerary in conjunction, as I said, with you, with the leaders of the program, the hosts, for something that's going to appeal to their audience. And everything is tailor-made for that trip. We ensure that the pace of the trip works well, that it's going to make for an enjoyable experience. We book all the elements, including the harder to get, reservations at certain tables or private visits at certain locations. The opportunity to meet with chefs, where the chefs comes out and talks to the group because they understand that you're so interested in food, or maybe spending time with the local people and having time in a private home. But, very focusing sort of even more specifically on the food tours, as you've experienced, it's really all about bringing people together who are interested in the same thing. On my recent trip, we had a lovely young couple. They weren't even from America, but they spoke very good English, in their 30s. I'm guessing. And they were as thrilled to be with the group as the couple in their 80s. But they all just got along, sharing time around the table, enjoying these exquisite meals together, sharing recipes, memorable food moments. And I think on the trip last year with Nancy and Ruth, we had a 22-year-old. He was adopted as like the token grandson by some of the people, but we had a full range of ages, and everyone was mixing, even the older couples that were traveling together. They decided that they wanted to sit on that table and chat to Ruth at this particular meal, and the wife and the husband has had fun chatting to somebody else, so he was sitting on a different table. I mean, it's just about all mixing in together and enjoying the experience together. And I think it was Maurizio that said after your recent trip to Puglia, these are my kind of people. Chatting to people about, where do they, buy such and such a product, or I really like this mozzarella because, or I love so and so's recipe for, or all of those things. All those are the conversations that are going on at the table, and people are, to use a pun, insatiable for it. So they really enjoy. Doesn't matter the age that we're attracting. Everyone gets on well on these types of trips.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think I will pride ourselves on is that, we organize everything, but we also have great staff on the ground to make sure that everything goes smoothly, putting out the fires in the background that half the time you're not even aware of, and just generally making sure that everyone has a great time, because that's what we're trying to create, a unique, memorable experience.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that you've brought up so many great points, and I'll just add a few more. I think for us on our trips, we spend several months preparing the itinerary before we even announce it and release it to travelers. And really that work is finding extremely unique experiences. We went and visited with Franco Pepe outside of Rome, and, we got a private tour from Franco and a tasting of all of his pizzas. And, having that FaceTime with Franco was, I would say, very unique for any travelers. If you were just visiting on your own, you probably wouldn't even get to meet the guy. And, for me, the value and why going on these trips, and I'll have to say from the jump, the price is not for everyone. And that's true about lots of travel. Some have to save and some don't. But, if you're thinking about investing and going to a location, having, Taste and ATA create an itinerary that's super unique. There's a lot of value for very busy people. And I think a lot of people want to go and to Puglia and Naples and visit the sites or go to Barcelona. But, figuring out all the reservations, all of the hotels, getting the transportation, if you're going out of the city, it can be a lot of work in the prep. And then once you're there, of course, you mentioned, there's things that go wrong with travel. That's just indicative of travel. And honestly, when you have a staff of 3 to 5 on the ground, sometimes more, assisting with the trip and doing it in a way that feels like super seamless in the background, there's a lot of value there. And I think younger people are starting to see this as, they plan European travel, Asian travel. And, lastly, the cost of travel in Europe is crazy. And if you've tried to book your own, flight, hotel, car rental, and then guided experiences, guides, it really starts to add up if you really do crunch the numbers. And then, of course, as I mentioned, all the things that can go haywire are there. Now, of course, we all have independent spirits, so we want to do our own thing. But I think more and more people are seeing that having an organized trip done by a cool, in the know operator. I'm just seeing we get notes all the time when we're launching these trips about what the trips are like, and biggest question is like, is it going to be feel like a bus tour? And yes, we use buses, but it's not the bus tour that your grandmother took to, I'm not going to slight any location to Athens. When we went to Athens with Susie Karache, and Susie is an incredible partner, and we're doing a trip next year. We're going to announce it soon. We were on buses, of course. We have some travelers, but once you get off the bus, you're going into these very small restaurants. You're getting an expert guided tour of Athens, a walking tour, lots of walking. Always pack those comfortable shoes. And I just think more young travelers and travelers of all ages are seeing the value here.
Well, yeah, and I would add further that yes, we use buses to travel around in, but it's not sort of regimented that the buses must leave at 3 o'clock after the lunch. I can't tell you how I'm quietly in the background going, we need another half an hour here. I cannot interrupt this amazing lunch experience. We'll just shift everything in the background to make sure that we just get everything happening later in the day, but everyone can continue to enjoy their lunch. So there's a lot of tweaking and adjusting. It's not sort of any sort of regimented thing that we must fit in these 4 visits and then get to this location and continue with the day. And the other unshoppable thing is really who you're traveling with. If it's with Taste Travel, it's with you and Maurizio or Susie or Jenny or whoever the cookbook author is on the trip. Those are, there's a hard to put a price on that, being able to share that love of food and knowledge about food with you people.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. A great point there about just having cookbook authors. I'm an author, but also with Jenny Rosenstock, we're going to Mexico City in April, and just having, all of that wealth of information available at any time is really special. I'll share a quick bus story. It's pretty remarkable. We were in really rural Crete with Susie Karache and myself this past June, and we were on a bus, and great coach, and we were going to a sheep farm to have lunch, and it was harrowing getting up these mountain roads. And I'm pretty confident from speaking with the farmer and really the people who worked on the farm. There's never been a bus up those roads. It was the first time they ever had a bus in their mountain village. And like you said, we certainly are always taking the temperature of the trip and sticking around, getting, sometimes a farmer or a producer wants to share more and give a more detailed, tour of the operation, and really just go over and just do a question and answer session. And so, yes, we certainly can delay, and like it's very challenging for our on the ground organizers at times to stay on schedule. But that's what travel's about. And I love that it's not like show up at the thing at 3 or you don't get to go. I mean, it's like the people think they know tours, but man, I was blown away when I started working with you guys and how bespoke and custom these are.
Well, that's great to hear. Yeah, that's what we try to achieve.
So I want to ask you, Emma, where are you traveling in 2025? I'd love to get a sense of the locations, and of course, not just with Taste, but with some of your other partners. And I'd love to get a sense of what's popular right now. Maybe some destinations that are less known, but you're seeing people have interest in them, and really tell us like what's interesting you the most, and then I'll share our trips for next year.
We're planning the 2 trips at least to Italy with Maurizio Leo again, to northern Italy, thinking fresh bread, panettone, throw in some great gelato, fresh pasta making with Alessandra Spinzi in Bologna, Parmigiano, eccetera, balsamico. What's not to love about that sort of cooking experience. We have a new Mediterranean location for the Mediterranean dish and Susie Carachet. I don't know whether we're allowed to reveal the location yet.
we're coming soon. We're very close to announcing that. Yeah.
So that's coming very soon. Other food tours that we're working on, we have a number of new trips planned for a new partner, Sur la Table. Sur la Table Travels, we're going to Puglia with them, northern France, Bordeaux. Those trips focus on the dining experience, cooking classes, but also kind of the art of hospitality, visiting local ceramic producers, linen and tableware producers. Bon Appetit Getaways is returning to Piedmont with Stefano Secchi after a fabulous sold-out tour in 2023. We have a new partner, the Brain Health Kitchen, which is going to Sardinia, talking about healthy eating, general lifestyle in a blue zone. We have another Bon Appetit trip to Thailand with Nok, who I know was on your show a couple of weeks ago. That trip sold out, and we're in the process of rapidly trying to put another trip together because there is great demand to travel with her to Thailand. That's a very personal trip curated by her. We have a trip to India, which is not specifically focused on food, but there is obviously food is a very much element of the journey, and traditional Indian food at that. In terms of other like destinations or other trips, we see a lot of continuing demand for Italy, France, Cuba is returning as a big destination for us. Emerging destinations, Ghana, Japan, Korea. We're also seeing a lot of sort of second city travel, a real push to visit places other than Paris, Rome, London, and that general desire to sort of be more sustainable and not returning to like top destinations. And I think that really speaks to ATA's sustainability initiatives, but also, as with all of our food tours, that desire to kind of go local in terms of like where we visit, but go local with the food, locally sourced produce. And so I would say that those are some of the things that we're looking out for in 2025.
That's exciting that you're working with Stefano Secchi. I love him, and I'm sure the trip to Piedmont with Bon Appetit will be a huge success. And I love hearing that you're going to Korea. I, of course, would love to do a trip to Korea with some of the folks featured in my books with Dookie Hong, and maybe we'll work on one of those for a coming year. And I'm going to add about the Jenny Rosenstock trip. It's really a special trip. Jenny is, of course, she's not a Mexican chef, and really the trip is about discovery for all. And Jenny's visited before, but really when we go on these trips, it's about having a lot of really interesting interactions on the ground. And that trip was also heads down to Oaxaca. and we learn about mole and have a cooking class down there. And one thing is about the trip, and you mentioned reservations. We're going to be at Pujol with Enrique Alvara and Entremar with Gabriel Camara. So we will have some really great restaurant experiences on that trip as well. And, we're working on getting the chefs there. Those two chefs, Enrique and Gabriela, have a lot of travel. But we're hoping to have them there when we visit, if they're around. And really, it's about getting into these exclusive spaces and having really meaningful interactions that go well beyond the meal and have a lot of conversation about the cooking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Emma, let me ask you, is there a single meal from one of your travels that you point to and you just can't stop thinking about it? It's like the single meal that blew your mind.
It's very hard to pick one meal. I just had so many amazing meals on this recent trip to France and the Basque Country. One meal from that trip would be the final lunch at Extabari, the number 2 restaurant in the world, where everything is lightly smoked. So simple, but so delicious. We had lightly warmed smoked caviar. Even the ice cream was made with smoked milk and then a beetroot sauce. And then we had smoked milk, goat's butter. I mean, it was very unusual, but so simple and incredibly delicious. But it was also about the space. We were in the middle of nowhere in this remote village. And then the space where we ate was so calm and simple. And it was, but the autumn sun was shining in. It was just such a beautiful, calm, relaxing, and just delicious meal. And then we all met the chef afterwards, and we went into his kitchen. And you expected some wild kitchen because he's smoking everything. He's this calm, humble, quiet, pretty shy chef who just does his thing quietly every day in the kitchen. And then you go in after the meal and it's clinical and clean and organized. It was sort of a juxtaposition to what you imagine something that features so much grilling and smoking. But so the meal was delicious. I guess that's the most recent meal, but I have so many others.
I mean, Emma, listen, Eshtabari comes up a lot on the show. A lot of chefs and food writers will cite it as one of their favorite restaurants. I'm extremely jealous. I've always wanted to go to this restaurant. I think probably going back 15 years, I've been thinking about trying to get a reservation there and really to get into the kitchen at Eshtabari. Certainly, that's not the typical move for a visitor, and to be able to have some FaceTime with the chef. That's incredible. And I wonder, do they put a steak on the menu late in the lunch?
Yes, we did have steak. Yes. Yeah. I almost forgot about that because we'd had so many other different smoked things on the way. We'd had sea bream and shrimp, but they were all just little tasters. And then we did get to the steak.
That's like their famous move they've done in the past. So they end the meal almost like dessert is a steak, which I think is such a fun play. And really one day I'll report back my trip there. Emma, let me ask you about packing for trips. I'm always thinking about this when traveling myself, and I think our listeners can really get some great info. Give us one item that you always pack that maybe is a little unexpected when you're doing international travel, especially for food. And then what is an item that maybe you always bring but you never use? It's like we all have that. We always bring that thing that no one, it just takes up space.
I'm not sure. I've learned to cut down how much I travel with over the years. The one thing I always travel, but it has nothing to do with a food tour. I always travel with my flip-flops and a swimsuit because I always hope, and I usually find a pool or a beach or a hotel spa where I can run in for 15 minutes between things. The things I usually take that I don't need are too many, a pair of shoes, another pair of shoes. You need just comfortable pairs of shoes. And I would say, like, even dining out in some of these smarter, Michelin starred restaurants, even in Europe, anything goes these days. So you don't need to dress up as much as perhaps you used to. So I probably take, more smarter clothes or another pair of shoes that I don't need because I just need the comfortable shoes. But my biggest tip is always to leave enough room in the suitcase so that I can bring something back. I'm always bringing something, olive oil, wine, or my recent discovery was these piment peppers from Espelette.
I'll just add, for me, I feel like one thing that we sometimes discount, especially when traveling like outside of major cities, is we sometimes overpack outerwear and pack way too many t-shirts and lighter shirts. I think when you're traveling, especially on Taste Travels, you're going to have great hotel laundry service, and especially in most markets, it's more affordable than the United States. And I just feel like there's nothing better than having some fresh clothing on the road and have it nice and folded in that special hotel way. So, overpacking and also to your point, like I think, having too much fashion centric gear, clothing is maybe for some not needed. And you're there to experience it for yourself and maybe not have to pack your best looks. That's just me. That's my thing. I think an eye mask is something that I know eye mask is not for everyone, but man, you can sometimes be in hotel rooms where there's light leaking in and get used to that eye mask if you can, because it really will spare you some restless nights if you can get used to that eye mask. That's always been my go-to, and also a good umbrella. Sometimes when you're traveling and when you're in the more rural areas, finding a really nice umbrella can be harder than you think. And so just pack that great umbrella because you never know when you're going to need it.
Yeah, those are great things. I would agree. I do agree with the eye mask. Yeah, I need it for the flight, if nothing else.
Emin Pavido, thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on the show.
This Is Taste is hosted by Eliza Abarbanel and me, Matt Rodbard. The show is produced by Shalia Harris and Pat Stango and edited by Clayton Gumbert. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter for updates on all cool things that are happening.